I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening to you, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast. Here are tonight's headlines.
At least 9 people were killed and 11 others missing after heavy rains across the Philippines flooded villages and triggered landslides.
At least 15 people have died during unseasonably heavy rain and flooding in North China's Shanxi province earlier this month, after the normally dry region received 3 months' rain in 1 week.
A small plane crashed into a residential area of a California city, killing at least 2 people as a blaze devoured 2 houses and several vehicles.
And the World Health Organization's vaccine advisors recommended people with weakened immune systems should be offered an additional dose of all WHO-approved COVID-19 vaccines.
First, here in our country, at least 9 people were killed, 11 still missing after heavy rains across the Philippines flooded villages and triggered landslides, according to authorities. Severe tropical storm Kompasu, or local name Maring, drenched swathes of the most populous island of Luzon today as it swept across the archipelago nation towards the South China Sea. Let's listen in.
Ayon sa report sa atin ng ating mga regional director, ay malawak yung epekto nitong severe tropical storm Maring, hindi lang yung Cordillera, pati na rin doon sa Region 2 at saka Region 1. At even dito sa Mimaropa, specifically sa Palawan. Kaya as of 8 o'clock this morning, mayroong report sa atin na 7 na patay. Ito ay dahil doon sa mga landslide na nangyari dyan sa Benguet at sa Baguio City at sa mga pagbaha dyan sa Claveria, Cagayan at Nara, Municipality of Nara sa Palawan. And sa ngayon, meron pang labindisip anak dahil na rin dyan sa mga landslide na nangyari dyan sa Benguet and yung mga pagbaha doon sa Palawan. So malawak ang effect niya, halos dito sa Palawan and dyan sa Northern Luzon. At yun naman ay makikita natin na base doon sa forecast na binigay ng Pag-asa, yung mga lugar na sinasabi nilang malakas ang ibubuhos na ulan. Kaya mula kahapon ay ang dami natin napadala ng mga emergency alert and warning messages tungkol sa mga malalakas na pag-ulan. So mabuti na lang ngayon na si Severe Tropical Storm Maring ay papalayo na at ang ating mga local government units sa tulong ng mga rescue agencies natin, ng ating mga major service, mga response units ay nagsasagawa ng mga rescue at saka rabi namin sa data task.
Meanwhile, the National Disaster Agency said 4 people were killed in landslides in the landlocked mountainous province of Benguet and 1 person drowned in the coastal province of Cagayan. 7 people were still missing on Luzon Island. 11 municipalities were flooded, but it subsided this morning, that according to Cagayan Provincial Information Officer Rogelio Sending. Major highways and bridges were flooded, he said, but the water was retreating today. The storm intensified the southwest monsoon, sparking a flash flood in a village in the western island province of Palawan, leaving 4 people dead and the same number missing. Around 7 to 8 barangays are still flooded due to clogged drainage or lack of drainage. That according to Earl Timbancaya, a disaster officer in the city of Puerto Princesa in Palawan. But it is subsiding now. The Philippines is hit by an average of 20 storms and typhoons every year, which typically wipe out harvests, homes, and infrastructure in already impoverished areas. Because a warmer atmosphere holds more water, climate change increases the risk and intensity of flooding from extreme rainfall.
At least 15 people have died during unseasonably heavy rain and flooding in North China's Shanxi province earlier this month. That, according to officials, after the normally dry region received 3 months' rain in 1 week. The flooding hit the coal-rich, landlocked region during a nationwide energy crunch, and after record floods killed more than 300 people in central Henan province in July. At least 60 coal mines in the province, one of China's top coal-producing regions, had temporarily closed due to the floods. But now all but 4 have returned to normal operation, according to local emergency management official Wang Quirui in a press conference. At least 1.75 million residents across the province have been affected by the floods, with 120,000 safely evacuated. Several regions across China have been hit by unprecedented flooding this year. Thousands were evacuated in the Hubei and Sichuan provinces this summer because of torrential rain. And more than 300 people were killed in central China's Henan province last month after record downpours, a year's worth of rain in 3 days. Experts say freak weather events such as heavy floods and punishing droughts are becoming increasingly common because of climate change.
Meanwhile, President Xi Jinping said China pledged to inject $233 million into a new fund to protect biodiversity in developing countries during a key UN conservation summit, despite disagreements among major donors on the initiative. Beijing, the world's biggest polluter, has sought to play a more prominent role internationally on biodiversity conservation in recent years. A key proposal being debated at the conference is the 30 by 30 agenda that would afford 30% of the Earth's land and oceans protected status by 2030. Global spending to protect and restore nature needs to triple this decade to about $350 billion annually by 2030 and $536 billion by 2050 to meet this target, according to a UN report. It's pledging as delegates from about 195 countries gathered in the southern Chinese city of Kunming for the first of a 2-part summit on safeguarding plants, animals, and ecosystems. The summit aims to establish a new accord, setting out targets for 2030 and 2050.
In other news, up to 3,000 residents of the Spanish island of La Palma on Monday were ordered to stay indoors after lava from a volcano destroyed a cement works, raising fresh fears of toxic gases. La Cumbre Vieja volcano began erupting on September 19, forcing 6,000 people from their homes as the lava scorched its way across 600 hectares of land. Miguel Ángel Molpuende, head of the cell handling the crisis, told journalists that a part of the cement factory had gone up in flames. He said until they can analyze if the air quality allows for normal life, they have decided to lock down. On Saturday, part of the volcano's cone collapsed, sending new rivers of lava pouring down the slopes towards an industrial zone. Flights to the island resumed on Saturday after 2 days on hold because of the ash blasted from the volcano. Despite the damage from the eruption, more than 1,200 buildings have been destroyed, according to local officials, although no one has so far been killed or injured in the disaster. This is the third volcanic eruption on La Palma Island, home to 85,000 people in a century, although the last one dates back to 1971.
Meanwhile, a powerful 6.3 magnitude earthquake struck off the Greek island of Crete today, the Athens Observatory said, with initial media reports suggesting no one was hurt. The quake struck at 0924 GMT with an epicenter in the sea 405 kilometers southeast of Athens and 24 kilometers from the village of Zakros, according to the observatory in a statement. Local media said it was felt on Crete and and on the Dodecanese Islands in the Aegean Sea, the epicenter in the sea far from inhabited places, according to Greek seismologist Gerasismos Papadopoulos. It comes 2 weeks after a strong 5.8 magnitude quake killed one person, injured 10, and damaged buildings on Crete. Greece is located on a number of fault lines and is sporadically hit by earthquakes.
Tens of thousands of protesters joined the first major climate march in Brussels since the start of the pandemic, just weeks before the UN COP26 climate conference in Glasgow. Take a look.
Ça fait chaud au cœur de voir que toutes les générations sont présentes et que toutes les générations, toutes les langues, je crois qu'il y a un sentiment profond qui est présent d'urgence.
Tout le monde s'est un peu endormi pendant la crise sanitaire et donc maintenant il est temps que tout le monde se réveille à nouveau et qu'on montre qu'on est là pour que les politiciens puissent prendre des mesures vraiment courageuses parce qu'on se rend bien compte que c'est pas facile comme mesure ce qu'ils vont devoir prendre, mais donc on doit être là pour les soutenir, pour leur dire allez-y quoi, on est prêts.
Nous on est allés à la COP24, il n'y a rien qu'à changer.
Depuis, il n'y a rien.
Y a rien.
Les accords de Paris, c'est toujours aussi aléatoire. On dit on ne sait même pas si on saura accomplir les accords de Paris.
In other environment news, climate activists burst onto the catwalk brandishing banners reading "Overconsumption equals extinction" at the Louis Vuitton's Paris Fashion Week show. Take a look. Now, she climbed onto the catwalk set up in the Louvre Art Gallery, even as models were showing off the latest styles before being hustled away by security guards. Extinction Rebellion, Friends of the Earth, and Youth for Climate said in a statement that around 30 people were involved in planning this protest, with 2 arrested. They called on the government to enforce an immediate cut in production levels in the sector, given that 42 items of clothing were sold per person in France in 2019. Louis Vuitton did not immediately comment on the incident when contacted by AFP. And the news continues here on Eagle News. CJ and I will be back right after this.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Araw-araw sa panahon ngayon, may daming tanong kailangan ng tugon. Nandito si Ali at si Papi na rin, ang smart at pretty nanay, ang siglaban ng kwentuhan. Ang sigaw ng Pinoy Nation, information, education. Ating salamin, ipakita natin ang sagot sa problema natin. Ano sa palagay nyo? Ano sa palagay nyo? Ano sa palagay nyo?
Ano sa palagay nyo? Abangan! Simula October 18, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 10 ng umaga. Mapapanood sa Net25 TV, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. Mapapakinggan din sa DZEC 1062 at Eagle FM 95.5.
Welcome back to the news. The public will soon be allowed outdoors and establishments to close at later hours after the Metro Manila Council, or MMC, shortened the standardized and unified curfew hours in the National Capital Region. The MMC, composed of the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority and the 17 mayors in the NCR, has set the new curfew from midnight to 4 a.m. beginning October 13 or tomorrow. Now, the shortened curfew hours come as after the Department of Health reported a general decrease in COVID-19 active cases in the NCR. As of October 11, the total number of active infections in the country is down to 98,894, or 3.7% of all cases, and 8,292 new cases, the lowest since August this year. The MMC has also urged LGUs to close cemeteries and other establishments commonly visited from October 29th to November 2nd to avoid the spread of COVID-19 infection.
In other news, President Duterte has attributed the significant drop in coronavirus or COVID-19 infections to the government's immunization drive. In a state talk to the people delivered Monday night, the president viewed as good news the apparent decline in COVID cases because of high vaccination rates. Take a look.
What is happening to our society can be best answered by tatlo lang. Tatlo lang talaga. Bakuna, magmaskara ka, iwas. That is all there is to it. Lahat ng pinagdadaldal namin dito would converge into one single sentence. Kaya yan na lang ang ipagbilin ko sa iyo na sana sundin ninyo. Kasi yan talaga ang pangpawala ng sakit ng ulo sa bayan natin. Pagpabakuna, alam ko marami pang ayaw eh. Yan ang problema, yung ayaw. Ayaw magpabakuna. I hope that I said everything that has been said here since the beginning has always been centered on one important factor, and that is really the vaccine. Meron tayong bakuna, marami na dumating. Pasalamat tayo kay Secretary Garbel. Then may we make use of that so that you can help the country.
As of Monday, a total of 50,066,590 coronavirus vaccine doses have already been administered nationwide based on the National COVID-19 Vaccination Dashboard uploaded on the official website of the Department of Health. Around 23,360,489 individuals have been fully vaccinated, while 26,706,101 others have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. According to the June 23rd to 26th survey conducted by the social weather stations, around 45% of Filipinos are now willing to get inoculated against COVID-19. Only 24% are still uncertain about receiving the vaccine, while 21% do not want to get vaccinated. Now, the World Health Organization's vaccine advisors on Monday recommended people with weakened immune systems should be offered an additional dose of all WHO-approved COVID-19 vaccines. The UN Health Agency's experts also said over 60s fully immunized with China's Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccines should be offered an additional third vaccine dose. The Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization, or SAGE, stressed it was not recommending an additional booster dose for the population at large, which is already being rolled out in some countries. The WHO wants a moratorium on booster doses for the general general population until the end of the year to prioritize first doses in the dozens of nations starved of vaccines. The WHO's target of getting 10% of the population in each country fully vaccinated by the end of September was missed by 56 states. However, almost 90% of high-income countries hit the target. SAGE said it would review the issue of general booster doses on November 11, and several COVID-19 vaccines have been given WHO approval for emergency use during the pandemic, namely Pfizer, BioNTech, Janssen, Moderna, Sinopharm, Sinovac, and AstraZeneca. They are all two-dose vaccines except the Janssen jab.
Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said New Zealand expects to administer a record 100,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses in a single day during a mass immunization drive on Saturday, October 16. Take a look.
Saturday between 12 and 8 p.m. on Channel 200 and supported to date by Discovery, screened on 3 and Māori TV and streaming on Hahana Facebook, will be holding a Vaxathon. The Vaxathon will go live across the country, highlighting vaccine initiatives from Cape Reinga to the Bluff and urging anyone who hasn't been vaccinated yet to make Saturday the day for their first dose, and anyone who has been 3 weeks or longer since their first dose to get their second. I believe we can be world leading on vaccines too and become one of the most highly vaccinated and protected countries globally, which will mean we'll be able to get back on track to safely open up restrictions that we currently have and get back to something that feels just a bit more normal.
To recall, New Zealand announced on Monday a sweeping no jab, no job policy for most healthcare workers and teachers to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Doctors, nurses, and other frontline health workers must be double jabbed by December 1, while everyone working in the education sector who has contact with students must have their 2 doses by January 1st. The Prime Minister said the highly transmissible Delta variant had proven a game changer that could not be eliminated.
Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott on Monday announced he was banning COVID-19 vaccine mandates for any entities in his state, including private companies. Now, the governor tweeted, "I issued an executive order prohibiting vaccine mandates by any entity in Texas. The COVID-19 vaccine is safe," he says, "effective, our best defense against the virus, but should always remain voluntary and never forced." The tweet included an attachment of the press release announcing the executive order, which stipulated that no entity in Texas can compel receipt of a COVID-19 vaccination by any individual, including an employee or consumer who objects to such vaccination for any reason of personal conscience based on a religious belief or for medical reasons, including prior recovery from COVID-19. The order came after Democratic President Joe Biden last month announced the government would demand vaccines for federal workers and for businesses with more than 100 employees. Many leading Republicans have described the mandate as an overreach and an attack on personal freedoms. Abbott, who had earlier been a forceful opponent of mask mandates in August, tested positive for COVID-19 after attending an indoor public event. Now the governor is fully vaccinated.
Staying in the U.S., thousands of healthcare workers at Kaiser Permanente facilities in the U.S., U.S. states of Oregon and California gave a green light Monday to call a strike should contract talks fail. Sticking points in the negotiations appear to be staffing levels and wages for nurses and others who have been on the front line of the pandemic. Healthcare workers are facing record levels of burnout after 20 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to Michael Barnett, president of the United Steelworkers Local in Southern California. Some 31,000 of the group's members who work at Southern California Kaiser Permanente locations voted an over overwhelming majority to authorize union leaders to call a strike, according to a USW statement. Meanwhile, nearly 3,400 workers at the major U.S. providers' facilities in Oregon have also voted by a large majority to strike. That, according to the Federation of Nurses and Health Professionals there.
Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship, Secretary Joey Concepcion, said the private sector is now considering vaccinating the children of their employees. Watch this.
So, ang vaccination level of acceptance dito sa private sector, ang taas, umaabot ng 90 to 100%. In our company, halos 100%. Pero maraming gustong kumuha ng bakuna. So now, what we're telling them, bakunahin na rin namin yung mga bata ng mga empleyado namin. So kasi ngayon minsan, ang problema dito sa ngayon, ang pinipierce ngayon ng family bubble. Marami nakakasakit dito sa pamilya kasi ang mga anak hindi bakunado, lumabas, nakasakit. Then they go in their family bubble. Then tuluyan ba, mga buong pamilya nahahawa. So we have to really vaccinate everybody in the family bubble as we are vaccinating everybody in the negosyo bubble. That's very important. Itong mga restaurants, mga spas, mga sinehan, dapat lahat ng mga empleyado nila bakunado kasi they're only accepting customers that are vaccinated. So eventually they have to be able to mandate that their employees, the salons, the spas, the restaurants, etc., they have to ensure that their employees are vaccinated.
Preliminary results in the Iraqi election show a low voter turnout, suggesting widespread distrust in the vote. Preliminary turnout in the Iraqi elections was 41%, and supporters of the Iraqi Shiite cleric Muqtada Sadir celebrated in Baghdad Square, Tahrir Square, following the announcement of the parliamentary elections results. Take a look.
President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday announced a plan worth 30 billion euros, or about $35 billion, to reindustrialize France, saying the country should reclaim its crown as a global leader in innovation. Now speaking at the Élysée Palace 6 months before a presidential election and 1 month ahead of a UN climate summit, Macron said France had taken key decisions 15 to 20 years later than some of our European neighbors, and now needed to become again a nation of innovation and research. Now, the spending was to address a kind of growth deficit for France brought on by insufficient investment in the past. He told that to an audience of company leaders and university students. Now, France, he said, needed to return to a virtuous cycle, which consisted of innovating, producing, and exporting, and in that way finance our social model. Over the next decade, he said, France would aim to become a global leader in green hydrogen and put 2 million electric or hybrid cars on the roads and
Meanwhile, Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro said he was prevented from seeing a football match in the city of Perube when he could not provide a COVID pass. The mandate applies for access to popular tourist spots and other public spaces such as cinemas, theaters, gyms, museums, sports stadiums, and conference venues, but not restaurants, bars, or shopping malls. Brazil had a late start with coronavirus vaccination, but is now the country with the fourth most doses administered. Take a look.
Presidente, o senhor, ao sair daqui antes de conversar com os apoiadores,
porque cartão, passaporte da vacina. Eu queria ver o jogo do Santos agora, me falaram que tem que estar vazando. Por que isso? Eu tenho mais anticorpos que ele tomou a vacina.
Ignis will be back with more stories. Don't go away.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Totoo ang kasabihang may pera sa basura, lalo na kung magagawa ang iba't ibang bagay mula sa mga recyclable material na inaakala ng iba na itatapon na. May ilang barangay sa bansa ang nagre-recycle ng basura at makikita ang iba't ibang bagay na gawa sa basura. Mga dekorasyon sa bahay, sa mga proyektong ito, nagiging malinis ang kapaligiran bukod sa mayroon pang pagkakakitaan.
Welcome back to the news. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has blamed the United States for tensions on the peninsula and accused the South of hypocrisy. State media reported that as he opened an exhibition showcasing his nuclear-armed country's weapons. The U.S. is the root cause of instability, he said in an address to the Self-Defense 2021 display, according to the official Korean Central News Agency. The Biden administration has repeatedly stated that it has no hostile intent towards Pyongyang, but Kim said, "I am very curious if there are people or countries who believe that." Washington and Seoul are security allies, and the United States stations around 28,500 troops in South Korea to defend it against its neighbor, which invaded in 1950. Now, last week, Pyongyang and Seoul reconnected their cross-border hotline in a sign of thawing ties, with only a few months left in office for South Korea's pro-engagement President Moon Jae-in. But Kim accused Seoul of reckless ambition and a two-faced illogical attitude. Analysts say North Korea is seeking to normalize its status as a nuclear power.
A small plane crashed into a residential area of a California city on Monday, killing at least 2 people as a blaze devoured 2 houses and several vehicles. Take a look. Aerial footage showed firefighters hosing down the charred remains of the residences in Sante, a suburb of San Diego. A burnt-out delivery truck was also seen on a nearby street corner. Fox 5 San Diego reported the plane was a twin-engine Cessna 340, a 6-seat aircraft that had departed from Yuma, Arizona, an hour earlier. There was no sign of the plane's remains from the aerial footage. Fire official Justin Matsushita said at least 2 people had died in the incident. Neighbors spoke of the whine of a falling plane followed by a loud boom as it crashed. The nearby Santana High School tweeted that all of its students were safe. Last month, 2 U.S. military pilots were hospitalized after their training jet crashed into the backyard of a residence in a neighborhood near Fort Worth, Texas.
Southwest Airlines is working to restore operations after some 1,124 flights on Sunday, by far the highest rate of any airline, 800 the day before, and another 326 on Monday, according to airline tracker FlightAware. The airline blamed the disruption on air traffic control issues and weather, and later on Monday acknowledged that staffing shortages also played a role in the service disruption. Like most airlines, Southwest let employees go when air traffic collapsed as the COVID-19 pandemic began, but has seen business surge this year as vaccinations spur people to travel again. The weekend snarls caused speculation that some pilots or other Southwest staff were participating in a work slowdown as a way to express opposition to the company's decision to require its employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Enjoy your favorite OPM hits as we play them on air and online. From music videos,
Yeah, we gonna go up. Ibibigay ko ang aking puso. Iyong tingin pa lang ako ay natunaw na.
to entertaining live and home performances of your favorite Pinoy artists.
Now every step we take, boundary we break. There's nothing we can do. Pakinggan mo ang aking sigaw sa talanong buhay.
Mag-hashtag Soundtrip and Chill kasama ang barkada ng Letters and Music. Balikan ang mga natatanging performances ng inyong favorite OPM artist sa Letters and Music Rewind. 4 p.m. mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes. Mga request at new performances naman ang bibida sa Letters and Music tuwing Sabado at Linggo, 1 p.m. Lahat ng yan dito lang sa Net 25.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Welcome back to the news. Blue Origin announced Sunday it was delaying an upcoming flight set to carry actor William Shatner to space due to anticipated winds. Shatner, who played Captain James T. Kirk in the cult classic TV series Star Trek, is due to become the first member of the iconic show's cast to journey to the final frontier as a guest aboard a Blue Origin suborbital rocket. Shatner, 90 years old, will be the oldest person ever to go to space. Take a look.
Why did you want to do it?
Because I wanted to claim that I was the oldest person that went. What a thing to have. He's the oldest guy that went into space. I want to have the vision. I want to see space. I want to see the Earth. I want to see what we need to do to save Earth. I want to have a perspective that hasn't been shown to me before. That's what I'm interested in seeing. This is no piece of cake, but we've delayed 24 hours because of the winds and the enormous concern for our safety, and we welcome that concern.
His trip will take him and the NS-18 rocket crew just beyond the Kármán line, 62 miles or 100 kilometers high, where they will experience 4 minutes of weightlessness and gaze out at the curvature of the planet. Blue Origin's decision to invite one of the most recognizable galaxy-faring characters from science fiction for its second crewed flight has helped maintain excitement around the nascent space tourism sector. For fans, the 10-minute hop from a West Texas base back to Earth will be a fitting coda for a pop culture phenomenon that inspired generations of astronauts.
Now, when Nicole Oliveira was just learning to walk, she would throw up her arms to reach for the stars in the sky today. At just 8 years of age, the Brazilian girl is known as the world's youngest astronomer. Take a look.
Para caçar os asteroides, eu uso um software que disponibiliza, onde eu coloco imagens nesse software e começo a caçar. Faço todo o procedimento e começo a caçar. Quando eu encontro um asteroide, eu envio o relatório no site do IASC.
A tem como meta ajudar, incentivar crianças, jovens no início da sua carreira científica. A Nicolinha é um exemplo clássico disso. Ela ama astronomia, os pais dão apoio, então é exatamente o que o planetário precisa.
Aos 4 anos, quando ela pediu um telescópio de presente, que é uma coisa inusitada, né, para a idade dela. Então, nós começamos a fazer algumas pesquisas, verificar a possibilidade e vimos que não era realmente possível naquele momento por questão de preço, de custo. E aí ela não desistiu, continuou estudando, pesquisando.
Yay! Ay, what a milestone for her. A personal milestone. Today marks my first year here on Legal News International. Time flies. I wish we're celebrating this day together, Alma.
Yes.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. The news continues tomorrow. I'm CJ Hero.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we live in interesting times.
Totoo ang kasabihang